Yo, Shortbox Nation, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for joining us. If you're new, welcome to the show. My name is Badr, and this is the Shortbox Podcast, the comic book talk show that brings you the best conversations about comic books and comic culture. This is episode 425, and at the time of this recording, it's officially 22 days until the best day of the year for all comic fans. I'm talking about Free Comic Book Day, which is happening on Saturday, May 4th, which is also Star Wars Day. So go ahead, get your obligatory Star Wars jokes out the way. May the 4th be with you all. If you're a member of our Patreon community hearing this episode early, you probably have about 21 days to go before Free Comic Book Day. But if you're listening to this episode on the main feed on release day, well, good news. You only have to wait 3 more days before this awesome holiday happens. Now, if you're absolutely new to this whole comic book thing and comic culture thing and have no idea about what I'm talking about, well, let me go ahead and explain it to you. Free Comic Book Day is a single day of the year when participating comic shops across the world will be giving away comic books absolutely free to anyone who comes into their shops. Now, it's not all the comics. You can't just walk in and grab a random book off the shelf, but there will be a special curated selection of books that are specifically made for this global event by publishers like Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, IDW, and so forth. Pretty much all the big publishers and pretty much all the publishers in comics get involved for Free Comic Book Day. If you go on the official website for Free Comic Book Day, freecomicbookday.com, you can see what special comics are going to be available for this year's event. I'll have that linked in the show notes, but if you're driving or if you can't get in front of a computer right now, let me just go ahead and tell you. It's an embarrassment of riches this year. There are a lot of great comics up for grabs, including new number ones. There's a couple of previews for larger comic events happening later this year, and there's a lot of good jumping on points for new readers. So this year's Free Comic Book Day is pretty stacked, which leads me to the guest of honor for this episode. I invited a professional who will not only help us get ready for Free Comic Book Day, but will also help us get the most bang for our buck, which you don't even need to spend $1 because it's Free Comic Book Day. So let's get started. Today I've invited Ashton Greenwood to the show, aka the Duchess of Free Comic Book Day. She's the official spokesperson for the event and runs the official Free Comic Book Day accounts all over social media. So she runs the Free Comic Book Day account on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. She's also a host on the Previews World YouTube channel and a regular contributor to the Previews magazine. And if that wasn't enough hats to juggle, she's also a marketing manager at Diamond Comic Distributors. Shortbox Nation, without further ado, let's give it up for Ashton Greenwood. What is up, Ashton?
Hey,
Happy
thanks for
Friday.
having me,
Welcome
Badr.
to the show. Hey,
I like that
I
applause.
appreciate.
That was a really warm welcome.
Oh, we try to make our guests feel like they're part of the Shortbox Nation, part of the family. And you're bringing like we're recording on Friday for anyone that's curious. But you're bringing some good Friday vibes. You got the sequence shirt on. You're feeling it. You're bringing some of that festive energy today.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Gotta get hype about it.
For sure. All right, Ashton. So as the Duchess of Free Comic Book Day, which I think is one of the best probably titles to have in the world of comic books, I'm curious, what does your Free Comic Book Day look like? Like, what are you doing on Saturday, May 4th? Like, give me the rundown.
Yeah, so I'm still kind of trying to plan out what my route will look like, but the approach I'm going to take is I want to try to hit 3 or 4, like 4 in a perfect world, comic shops in the Baltimore area and based out of the Baltimore area, just to just celebrate. Like I want to hit as many shops as I can to celebrate, but also to capture those shop celebrations for the Free Comic Book Day social media channels, just to show other people like how different shops celebrate. And so I'll be trying to live stream, capture pictures, Instagram stories, all of that good stuff. And then in a similar vein, I'll also be monitoring the Free Comic Book Day social channels and trying to share, retweet as much content from shops across the country and around the world, just so that, we can give fans a really good look at how big this event is, how beloved this event is, and also all of the different ways the shops celebrate, because it really does vary from shop to shop. And some of these shops get incredibly inventive and creative with how they want to celebrate. They do things like cosplay contests, cookouts, food trucks, like have the stormtroopers come and harass customers. So there's a lot of different ways to celebrate, and I really want to make sure that comes through on the event day itself.
Yeah, I feel like Free Comic Book Day is the day for a lot of shops to like step out their comfort zone, try new things.
Mhm.
I know at my local comic shop, Gotham City Limit here in Jacksonville, Ben, who owns a shop, he's had like video game trucks come out there, like those big
Ooh.
trucks that you could like that have like consoles inside and like the nicest
Mhm.
screens and things. He's had like that. He'll do like a barbecue, so he'll have someone like manning the grill the whole time, and we've got our own like stormtrooper chapter here in Jacksonville. I think
Oh,
they're called the 501. Hopefully, I'm
okay.
not saying that wrong, but yeah, I agree. Free Comic Book Day is fun. Like it gives you an excuse just to go to every comic shop in like your local area. I remember like when I was much
Absolutely.
younger, I would hit the ground running at like 7 a.m. Like and I had like kind of like what you were saying, like a route planned out
Mhm.
and all that. Nowadays, I don't have nearly as much energy as I used to make it an all day thing, but it's still a lot of fun to even hit like one shop. So it sounds like for you, like it sounds like for you it's an all day thing. Like you're like I'm assuming like you're getting up early and you're probably aren't wrapping up or getting home till late, right?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it changes this year. I felt like last year some of the shops in my area opened like late morning, like 10, 11, so not crazy early. But like so much work goes into pulling off this event that I want
Hmm.
to maximize the celebration as much as possible. And also like give each shop a little bit of love. Like the books are free,
Yeah.
yeah, but like the shops pay for the books that they give out for
Hmm.
free. So trying to like get my free books and then also buy something there and just like patronize as many shops as I can. And yeah, it's an all
Yeah.
day event, but I'm about that. Like there's so much to do, and like I said, every shop is different that you can make it an all day event and not feel like you're just having the same experience over and over again at
Yeah.
different locations.
That is well said. Yeah. Yeah. In those years when I was hitting up multiple shops, it was like it was like a different. You kind of got to experience like a shop's like unique flavor. Like what they
Yeah.
specialize in. Like some shops, are maybe more smaller, hole in the wall, mom and pops own, and they maybe specialize in indie books. And then you've got like your larger chain shops that might go all out or more focused on the big two. Yeah, I guess if you're lucky to have multiple shops, it can be a cool like all day thing and still kind of keeps it fresh. I
Mhm.
was, I was looking through the Free Comic Book Day website, and I was reminded of its. I think it had like its mission statement, right? Like the mission of Free Comic Book Day is to engage new and old readers alike, and hopefully, bring new foot traffic to comic shops, kind of like reintroducing people to their local comic shop scene. And you mentioned something that's like really important. I think to note is that even though it's in the name, right? Free Comic Book Day, and I think it gets people out and about. Like these books aren't free for the actual for the shops for the retailers. Like they're paying out of they're paying and they're giving it out free and with hopes that they're bringing foot traffic and maybe someone might pick up something. I guess do you have any recommendations or advice for first timers that are getting to experience Free Comic Book Day for the first time, and like I guess any advice to like maximize the day and like really enjoy it to its fullest?
Yeah, definitely. So I think one of the things we try to do with the lineup each year is put in licensed titles that are things you would be familiar with if maybe you aren't already a comic book reader, right? So this year there's Doctor Who, there's Pokemon, there's Street Fighter, there's Star Wars, and a couple other things. So if you are new to comics and this is, or maybe relatively new, and this is your first time dipping your toe into it, there's plenty of opportunity to try something new but yet is something that is already familiar. So I think not trying to like swing to the fences and do anything too crazy. Like stick to the stuff you know, and that way you can kind of
Hmm.
like dip your toe in and understand the medium a little bit better before you go all out. I love going all out, but I don't know that I want to like recommend that to people who maybe are trying to get
Hmm.
into the hobby for the first time. I don't want to make it seem daunting. And then the other thing you mentioned, new number ones. That's another great way to get involved. Is it's a new number one, it's a new story, it's a new jumping on point. Like it, you don't really need a lot of existing knowledge to get in with that book. So I would say look for number ones too. And I also think there's a lot of value in asking. the sales clerks, the shop owners, whoever's working there, because they know their stuff like front and back. You could tell them a little bit of like, I like this game, or I really enjoyed this show or whatever, and they'll be able to hit you with a list of recommendations. So I would say also leverage the folks in the shop.
That is well said. I think this is a prime opportunity to not only like maybe jump into something new, maybe like your new favorite book, or find a new title or creator, but it's also a great opportunity, I think, to with time, if time allows, to get to know like the staff at the comic shop, and have like a one-on-one with them if you can. Now granted, like they are swamped and busy, so those kind of interactions might be a little smaller, but I found that like last year I was at Free Comic Book Day at my local shop. I brought my recorder. I was getting like interviews, and I was like just really surprised by how many people were celebrating like the first Free Comic Book Day. Like this was their first time at the shop, and obviously like Free brought them out, but it was for them. It was like, oh, I didn't even know like they carried this. I didn't know like I could buy this here, and oh wow, I got to meet the owner for the first time, and he's so nice. I think I might set up a poll. I guess like, do you have any stories or any experiences on Free Comic Book Day that like stick out to you? Like, do you have a memorable interaction or memory from your years of running Free Comic Book Day and doing these routes and being out and about and kind of like experiencing it on the ground floor?
Yeah. So last year we did a live stream at two of the different shops in the Baltimore area, and this particular instance was at Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, which is in Reisterstown, Maryland. And we were going around interviewing some of the people that were in there celebrating Free Comic Book Day, asking them about, how'd they get into it? What do they like about it? All of those questions. And there was a father and a son in there. And we asked the kid about it. And the kid was just like generically excited to be there. Just was like having a great time. Was like, I got this book. I don't even remember what it was, but he was like thrilled about it. And then we talked to the dad, and the dad, like, you could tell how much that meant to him. Like, comics had been his thing forever. He'd grown up being a comic book fan, and he had talked about how important it was for him to be able to introduce his son to it and have it be a thing that they shared and they were able to do together. And that like, I really got that. And that's kind of the power of comics. It's a community builder for sure.
And as an uncle to 4 awesome nephews, when I mention to them like, hey, you guys want to come hang out with me on Free Comic Book Day, it's like brownie points galore. Like I'm the best uncle of the century when I bring the Free Comic Book Day. So yeah, it is a awesome. I mean, I think I saw a comment on one of the Free Comic Book Day, on one of the videos on the Free Comic Book Day at YouTube, and so I think one of the top comments I saw was like, the only 2 days better than Christmas, Free Comic Book Day and Star Wars Day. And this year, we get that amalgam of both of them, right? Like, what more could you ask for as a nerd? I love it.
Oh, now you can't. It's perfect.
Right? Now, Ashton, I guess, now I wear a similar hat as you on my day job. I'm also a marketing manager, and when I saw that you also wear the same hat, it piqued my interest, and now I'm thinking like logistics and because I've thrown a few events, and I know like the amount of work that goes into it, and you're in charge of being the spokesperson for Free Comic Book Day and running all the channels and all the work that goes into that. I'm curious on the back end and behind the scenes, like how much time does it take to plan for a Free Comic Book Day? Like, for example, like this one here, like how, I guess, give me the routine breakdown. Like, what's the timeline to get the books in, to get the word out, promotion and all that? How much time are you spending on Free Comic Book Day stuff?
So I will start on Free Comic Book Day 2025 in August of this year.
Oh, wow.
So, August kind of starts, we'll revamp the application. September is the application window for vendors that want to apply to have a book in Free Comic Book Day. And then October, we'll send it off to the selection committee, which is chaired by Joe Field and a handful of other comic shop owners. And they will look through everyone that has applied and put together the lineup that they feel is best to bring in new customers, old customers, and just create the best event. That'll be October. November, we'll announce the books to the public. They'll be available in the December previews catalog for shops to order them. And then January until May is just like this massive promotion window of making sure everybody is excited, knows what the books are, knows what the collectibles are, because we also make exclusive figures for the event. Knows who the commemorative artist is and if they want the shirt they've designed. This year we had Terry Moore, and he did like a play on his Strangers in Paradise characters, and it's been super popular. But so making sure everybody knows all of that stuff, and then the day will get here, the first Saturday in May. But so it's a hell of a window. It's a hell of a lead time.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking that today. Like, I wonder. So I mean, it sounds like at least you get a nice break from May. Pre-comic day this year is May 4th, so it sounds like May 5th to at least October. It's like a nice break and a chance to like reset and refresh. And how do you go about keeping this fresh for you? Because not only are you doing the massive amount of work to get Free Comic Book Day promoted accordingly and all the backroom stuff, but you're also a host on the Previews World YouTube channel. You contribute to the Previews magazine. So I imagine like your mind is always thinking comic books. You're always inundated with comics. Like, how do you unwind and take a step back? Do you have any other like hobbies that you enjoy or like to do?
I like to read. I do read comic books in my free time as well. But I'm also a big hiker. That's probably like the main way I reset, because you can get outside and kind of just like have headspace and not think about anything and just like enjoy nature and be completely separated and isolated from kind of like the rigor and rush of every day. I love it. And it's finally getting nice here. Like, spring in Baltimore is gross. It rains for 2 months, so it's like finally about to be good hiking weather.
Yeah. I in a similar vein, the weather here in Florida is getting really nice, and it's almost prime like beach season. Like, it's still a little too cold to go, in the ocean or whatnot, but it'll be in the next month. It'll actually, by the time this episode comes out, the water will be great. And I'm of the similar vein too, where even on my off time, I'll bring comic books, but I'll bring books that I'm not like reading for the show, like that I don't need to prep for the show. It's like my opportunity to be like, oh, let me finally read, this thing I've had on the back burner for a minute. What are some, I guess, like when you think of recent comic reads, what have you been reading? Like, what's at the top of your pile? Like, what are you excited to get at your local comic shop? What are some of those titles?
So I actually just read 2 that weren't on my pull list. They were just like, oh, I think I'm going to try this. One of them was Virtually Yours, which was originally a webtoon. It got published by Dark Horse Comics. Jeremy Holt and Elizabeth Beals is the creative team. And it honestly, like, I know the whole thing with books and reading and like comic books in particular is you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I totally did that with this. I was like, this cover looks fun. I'll try this. And it paid off hugely. Like, I had such a great time reading this book. It's about, like an app where the whole deal is you sign up for this app and you can get like a fake boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. And they'll like send you texts, call you, leave you voicemails, like send you flowers to like create the illusion of having a partner without actually having to do the work of one. And the appeal of that is like the main character in this book is trying to focus on her job. She's a journalist. She just wants to work in her family. It's a traditional Latino family. And they're like, when are you going to get a boyfriend? When are you going to get married? Like, when are you going to settle down? And she's like, I need you guys out of my face so that I can work. But so the fake boyfriend she gets, she ends up meeting him in real life and they hit it off in person, but they don't know that he's the fake boyfriend. It was just so much drama. I loved it. And then speaking of drama, the other thing I've been really into lately is Snot Girl, which like I'm so late to the party with this. And I'm also super bummed that it's still on hiatus. But that is like psychological thriller, influencer drama, like it just like so much drama. I don't like drama in my real life. I want like fake drama. So that's like right up my alley.
Yeah. You want to live vicariously through your comics, which is not a bad move. Man, I feel like you unlocked the memory of a Snot Girl. I remember when that series came out in my local, her name is Amber, but we called her local comic shop girl. And she was hyping up I remember her hyping up Snot Girl. Like, this is the best book ever written. So thank you for bringing that back up in my memory. Man, what type of books like do you gravitate towards? Because I imagine you get access probably to every probably comic book out there working with Diamond
Hmm.
and what you do with previews, but like, what do you personally gravitate towards? Like, and if you don't mind sharing, like, what are some of the comics that are on your pull list?
Yeah, totally. So I tend towards what I would consider like three categories: slice of life, drama, like
Hmm.
that kind of thing. And I would consider both of those titles, Snot Girl and Virtually Yours, to be in that category. Um, I love a dystopian hot mess, like, or dystopian sci-fi situation. Like the book that got me into comics was The Walking Dead. Um, and Archie. It's not really like a genre, it's a publisher, but like I
Yeah.
love Archie so much, as specifically Jughead. Um, and I just have to shout out Archie because I feel like they're doing such good work and such good storytelling that goes beyond like what you think of when you think of like the 40s
Yeah.
super cartoony Archie. Like they've really expanded a lot of their Archie horror line and they've done a lot of really good storytelling. So
Yeah.
anyone who will let me run my mouth, I inevitably tell them about Archie. Um, I don't know. I'm a bad comic book fan right now because I haven't really been keeping up with my pull list. My approach the last, like, I want to say 2 months has been this, like,
Hmm.
judge a book by its cover approach, which is I've just gone into the comic book store and I'm like, this one looks good. This one looks good. Inside of this looks cool. And then I just buy a bunch of stuff and go home and try it because I'm trying to
Yeah.
expand my palette a little bit. I have a tendency to like really stick towards those slice of life things. Like I'm a big Heartstopper fan, so I'm trying to expand outward by just like picking up a bunch of other things that I'm unfamiliar with.
What? Uh, what the hell is happening?
It says it's still recording.
Oh, okay, that was weird. Yeah, that was weird. Okay, but I did hear that, and
Okay.
I think comic books is the one medium that you can like that rule of like don't judge a book by its cover. I think comic books is the one place you can make an exception because it's so like visually heavy and the art
Yeah.
is always beautiful. And that resonates with me too because I'm a bad comic book fan in the sense that I don't put every title on my pull list. I've gotten to the point now where I enjoy, much like you, like going into a shop on New Comic
Mhm.
Book Day and just seeing what's out there, what grabs my
Yeah.
attention. Because I feel like there's so many good comics coming out of like indie publishers, and it feels like every month is a new indie publisher. I'm finding out I haven't heard like this week. I found out about like Magma Publishing and picked up this book
Oh
called The
yeah.
Principles of Necromancy. So it is cool to do that. Like I've got a short box full of number ones, like just issue ones I picked up just based on the cover, just wanting to try something new and all of that. So not a bad strategy if you don't, it's not a bad strategy if you don't mind just like, you know what, rolling the dice. I'm gonna see if I can pick this
Yeah.
up and if it's in the shop. Yeah. Um, I guess actually, if you don't mind, you mentioned that Walking Dead is what got you into comic books. Is that your
Mhm.
earliest conscious memory of comic books, or do you have like another memory of like it being your first conscious exposure to comics? Like, do you remember like the book that maybe you were first exposed to, or I guess Walking Dead got you into it, but any other memories when it comes to like early comic book memories?
Yeah, Walking Dead is the book that I was like, because I watched the show first, and then like they have like lower third that's like based on the graphic novels by Robert Kirkman, and I was like so into the show that I was like, I need more of this. So Walking Dead was very much the first comic book that I sought out with the intention of like reading and keeping up with, and that being something I'm invested in. But prior to that, like I had certainly had experiences like flipping through the older Archie books and like different Garfield and like Calvin and Hobbes comic strips and stuff like that. So that would probably be my first exposure to comics as like a format or a medium. But Walking Dead was very much the first thing that I was like, I intend to
Hmm.
stick with this and like dig into it.
Okay. You brought up Archie twice, and I think now is a good time to jump into my next question, a kind of segment. And this is going to be more of a visual one. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're set. If you're listening to the audio, I'll try to be descriptive as much as possible. But I want to talk about some of the free comic books that are available this year. So I've got the comics pulled up on the Free Comic Book Day website. Like I said in the intro, I'll have this linked in the show notes, but it's on freecomicbookday.com. And, just once again, keeping the newcomer in mind, and maybe even like the long time goer. Maybe this isn't your first rodeo for New Comic Book Day, but maybe you didn't know this. But I noticed that the comic books are split up between gold comics and then silver comic tiers. Can you explain like what's the difference between these two tiers?
Yeah, totally. So in the sake of transparency, to some extent, this has to do with the likelihood you are to see that book in a shop. So the gold comics are the ones that the shops are more or less required to order in order to be considered an official participant and to be listed on the locator. Um, and then the silver ones, they can order in any capacity they want. They're not required to meet any sort of ordering threshold. Um, so from like a logistical standpoint, that's what that means in terms of like a why do fans care? Because I'm sure they don't care about the logistics, and I get that. That's fine. It has to do with like how recognizable they are, how what the barrier to entry is, what the price of admission is. So these gold books are the books that you can read without a lot of prior knowledge, that are the best jumping on points, and are also the most recognizable to folks who maybe aren't traditionally comic fans. So you see Johnny Quest, you see the Transformers, you see Pokemon, you see the Turtles. So, or I guess Encanto too for the little kids. The ones that they'll show up the most frequently, and therefore are the ones that are probably of most interest or most recognizable.
Yeah, well said. And I'll say that I think the fun that comes with free comic, because the gold tier, you can find these pretty much every comic shop, like you said, will be carrying it. They've got to in order to be eligible for the rest. But I think it starts getting really fun for the silver comics, because then it kind of adds a little bit of a. You mentioned Pokemon, and so that's the first thing that comes to mind. But like a little bit of a Pokemon hunting aspect to it, where this shop didn't get this book, but they've got this one. You've got to go to, the shop down the street to pick up this one, which I guess depending on if you don't mind driving and if you don't, mind making it kind of like a more than an hour thing, it's fun. If not, then, you might, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? But I personally enjoy like, having that, that motivation to go visit a shop that maybe I haven't seen in a while, or go meet someone that I haven't seen, go talk to some folks I haven't seen to in a while. So yeah, I was really impressed with the lineup this year, and I wanted to get your opinion on any books that stand out to you that you feel like, hey, these would make either a great jumping on point, or hey, you've got to get on this, this is a reason to go to Free Comic Book Day and pick up some of these titles. And I wanted to start with the gold comics. Is there anything here that stands out to you, that sticks out to you, that you think, the listeners might appreciate?
Yeah, definitely. So that one from Skybound, the Energon Universe, Transformers, and G.I. Joe. My friends at Skybound gave me a sneak peek at this book. I got to look at some of the interior pages ahead of time, and it is so cool. Like, so much action, everything you would expect from the Transformers, but like with a twist on it with the G.I. Joe element. I definitely recommend this one. This is not a book I keep up with, so I did not feel like that hindered my ability to enjoy it. So I don't feel like there's any prior knowledge that's needed to have a lot of fun with this book. And this book is super fun.
Yeah, as someone that has been keeping up with the Energon universe, I'm excited. This is a mandatory pickup because the series, Transformers, Void Rivals, Duke, Cobra Commander have all been amazing. So any opportunity to get even more of that universe, and especially for free, I'm all for it. So yeah, that's definitely going to be one I pick up. Let's go back to the overall. What else do you got for us? What else sticks out to you?
Personally, for me, I liked Johnny Quest growing up. I watched it, so I'll definitely grab that because it's got all the right nostalgia. And that cover is really cool. Dynamite just revealed that in the last month, I would say. So I was glad they showed us that for a while. I was like, maybe we're not going to get to see it until an actual Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, it's
and then
the
third one. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. For anyone that's just listening audio-wise, the cover is done by Chris Samney, so you already know it's a beautiful cover. Yeah, you cannot go wrong with Chris Samney on doing cover work.
And then the third one that I think I should shout out is this Worlds of James Tynion book because he's so popular. I feel like I need to read Something is Killing the Children. I feel like that's something I'm missing out on, and I know there's a lot of excitement around this book, so I think that's probably one worth grabbing. It seems like it has a lot of potential to be one that goes quickly and is maybe difficult to find.
It doesn't ever surprise you how, these books are free the day of. And then what you'll find is that sometimes these books will, introduce a new character. They'll, be the prequel to, big summer event coming on the way or things like that. Does it ever surprise you to find out that some of these free comic books like just skyrocket in value in the aftermarket, like after the event? Does it ever surprise you how that goes sometimes?
Absolutely, yes. The whole point is that it would be a springboard to get more people on. You're like, oh, here's a new character, here's new this, here's new that. But yeah, it can go from being like literally $0 to like 20, 30, very expensive depending on what you want to get. And it is nuts, but also that's kind of like the appeal. I think that has some value for the event itself, right? Like if you missed out on that, maybe that encourages you to not miss Free Comic Book Day next year.
That is well said. You never know what book you end up picking up that might end up, especially if you're in like the collecting side of comic books and, you value the condition and, maybe want to do resell at a later date. Some of these books will surprise you how much they go for in the aftermarket.
Oh my God, yes.
One I'll highlight from the gold tier is, for starters, there's a Hellboy Stranger Things comic where Mike Mignola is writing it. They've got art by Mark Laszlo and Jonathan Case. And I'm a sucker for Hellboy, especially when Mike Mignola does the covers. I wish he was doing the interiors, but I totally get that he's a busy man. But, for, like Hellboy, and it's also like I guess a two-part comic where there's a Hellboy story and a Stranger Things comic. I have not been keeping up with Stranger Things in comic form, so I'm kind of looking forward to this to get like a double feature. I love anytime you get like a double feature or even like a triple feature for free comic books. And I'll also give a special shout out to, Marvel always tends, in my opinion, they definitely, I think they do Free Comic Book Day right, where they'll always have at least one or two issues that'll serve as like a really good jumping on point or a prequel to like something coming out later in the month or over the summer. And in this case, I want to highlight this Ultimate Universe Spider-Man #1 book that they are putting out. It's written by Zeb Wells, and it's got art by Ryan Stegman doing interior and cover art. And it looks like it'll go kind of hand in hand with everything that Hickman is doing with the Ultimate Universe. So a prime example of like where it's catering towards, someone like me that's been keeping up with Ultimate Spider-Man, but also like, a good jumping on point for someone that might have, that loves Marvel but doesn't know where to start. I think this is a prime example of like, a good Free Comic Book Day issue. Okay. And let's move on to Silver Comics, because once again, I think this is where you get such a rich diversity of books, like, the amount of publishers that are categorized in Silver Comics. Like it never, I love scrolling through these because I'm always like, oh wow, they've got a Popeye comic. Oh man, Gotcha Man is coming back and they've got the first issue for free. You know what I'm saying? So what comics in the Silver tier stick out to you?
Yeah, so I think I have three I want to point to, and two of them are kind of related, so I'll go with those first. The Marvel Star Wars book, which makes perfect sense because it's Star Wars Day. Like, it feels like you have to get it. And the cover art with Luke's face is so cool. I don't even care what's inside. Like, the cover itself is great.
Yeah, the cover is by Phil Noto, and he just has, you know what I'm saying? Like, Chris Samney, Phil Noto are names that that if you put them on the cover, people are going to at least pick it up to check out the cover.
And then going hand in hand with that, I believe it's Mad Cave is doing a Flash Gordon book, which, like, a lot of Flash Gordon was inspiration behind Star Wars. So I also feel like the May the 4th thing, you got to check that one out.
Come on, you got to at least, like, if you're not going to make the obligatory May the 4th be with you joke or any Star Wars jokes, you got to at least take it a step further and pick up either the Star Wars book or Flash Gordon. I'm very surprised, Ashton, that you didn't, and I'm going to shout this out because this was on my list, but they've got an Archie Horror Presents comic book coming out as well. That also looks like it's going to have a couple of different stories because I'm looking at the writer and artist lineup, and it's pretty intense. But how do you feel about Archie Horror having an issue for Free Comic Book Day?
Oh, I'm so excited. That was going to be my third one that I pointed out. This whole cursed library thing that they've been doing is awesome. I have been keeping up with this one. It's exploring like why is Riverdale weird, basically. Like
Why is it freaking cursed?
why, like that's literally what this is. Like why do they have werewolves and vampires and the afterlife and witches and like all of the stuff like the cursed library tries to answer what is it about Riverdale that makes it susceptible to all of these oddities.
Yeah, and I'll say this is an example of, I feel like the theme for this episode, Ashton, is that you can judge a book based on its cover because the cover for this is phenomenal. It piques my interest. I'm not familiar with the cover artist Robert Hack, but I will be looking for more of his stuff now. I want to go ahead and jump in here and say that I am really excited for, what did I have on here? There was a few. You mentioned the Star Wars one. I'm going to say that, talking about, I think this is also by Chris Samney. Speaking about Chris Samney, he's also doing the cover for the free issue of Gotcha Man. And I'll admit, I might have missed the boat on Gotcha Man. I think that maybe a little before my time. It wasn't really played in my house, but I see this cover by Chris Samney. I know the concept of Gotcha Man, and I'm curious. It's written by Colin Bunn is getting credited on here. Ooh. Steve Orlando I'm familiar with. It's like I'll admit I think the lineup for this year has got some hitters in terms of like, big named writers, amazing, beautiful cover artists. So yeah, I'll give this Gotcha Man issue a shout out, as well as, kind of speaking about, you mentioned Flash Gordon and it's got me thinking about like Pulp and, those classic stories. There's a free comic book day issue of Conan that's coming out, which is meant to, in this case, launch a brand new story arc that's going on in the Conan series called Battle of the Blackstone. And as someone that's been collecting these issues, once again, this is it feels nice to know like, okay, these books that I've been reading are these publishers are participating in the event, are offering something. I don't know. It kind of just gets you hype and excited to like, man, I can't wait to, for next month when that issue hits. It kind of gets you excited to continue going to the shop and enjoying free comic or new comic book day too. All right, Ash, is there anything else you want to shout out from this list before we move on?
I guess there's something from the covers that I want to point out because I think it's really useful. So I guess if you could just click on like any book.
Yeah, let's go with this Maleficent because
do they have it? They didn't even put it on there yet. Okay.
Yeah, I'll pick it. I'll pick another one.
One that
Let's
has
go
the free comic
with
book day
it.
paper.
Has a free. Okay. Let's go back to. Let's go back to this Archie Horror. Let's do that.
Okay. So this banner that's on the top cover of all of the books, it'll be one of three colors. It'll be green, blue, or red. And the color of that banner tells you what the age rating on the book is. So if it's a green banner, it's all ages. It's appropriate for all readers, including children. If it's blue, it's a teen-rated book, 13 and up readers. And if it's red, it's a mature book, 18 and up readers. So it's just a good tool to make sure you get the right books in the hands of your kiddies if you have them with you.
Wow. I knew I was going to learn something new, but I didn't know I was going to learn that today. So you guys really have it all like figured out, and there's the methods of the madness, because I would have never guessed that. And I've questioned before, like, why is this one blue? Why is this one green? So, okay, so there's the methods of madness. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. All right, so once again, you can check out the rest of those titles on the freecomicbookday.com website. That'll be linked in the show notes. I want to hear what you guys are picking up because, look, my goal is always to try to get as many free comics as I can. I've got my list going on, so I'm going to try to get all of those marked off. Ashton, is there a... Well, actually, wait. I already asked you about the standout year. How about... I get. All right. Do you feel like you've got it figured out at this point? Because I understand that you've been working on Free Comic Book Day since you started working at Diamond in 2018. Like,
Mhm.
do you feel like at this point, like, do you have it figured out, or does it change everywhere? Does it change enough every year where it's like it feels like a brand new thing, or I guess like how do you approach it? How are you approaching Free Comic Book Day? Every year.
Yeah, I think well, in terms of like the overarching planning, like the high level overview, I feel like I've got that fairly down to a silent science. Not much of that changes year to year.
Hmm.
But I'm shocked every year that there's like tiny things, like the nuances of it that we manage to like every year come away with a list of things that's like we want to do this differently next year. We want to make this more clear. And I think a lot of it is in like communicating, I think is where we find room for improvement all the time, making sure retailers like understand very clearly what they need to do to order the books, what makes them an official retailer versus like just a shop that has Free Comic Book Day books. When will they get it? When will they be billed? Do they know like when to expect those boxes and when to expect those invoices? So it's a lot of fine tuning every year. But I think the thing that makes it most different year to year and that keeps it fresh and keeps it fun is how much leeway I get to play around on social media, for lack of a better
Hmm.
phrase, and find new ways to promote the event and to make it engaging and keep it fun and ask people what they're looking forward to. And I'm also very surprised by how same year to year.
Now, you mentioned earlier that one of the things that one of the first things you guys do is, you're getting these books from publishers, and you've got a committee that reviews them and things like that, which I think is really cool because it sounds like it is done by people that you mentioned, like Joe Field, the guy that's
Hmm.
responsible for starting Free Comic Book Day. He's a comic shop owner himself, a longtime comic shop
Hmm.
owner himself. Is that committee like pretty much consisted of comic shop owners and readers? Like, I guess when I hear committee, I think about like the Grammys were a couple months ago, and people are anytime the Grammys happen, people talk about the committees that are in charge, and
Hmm.
like you don't know who's on the committee, but it's supposed to be like people that work in the music industry that are journalists and things like that. What is the committee consisted of
Hmm.
when it comes to like reviewing Free Comic Book Days and making the selections of what books will be offered?
The committee is 100% comic shop owners.
Hmm.
Diamond doesn't get any say in the books. The comics media doesn't get any say. It is
Oh well.
selected by the shops exclusively. It's chaired by Joe Field. It's usually made up of about 10 shops of rotating owners. So it's not the same owners year after year. He tries to spread the love a little bit to make sure everyone gets a chance to get some input. But I think it works best that way because nobody knows better what will perform well in a shop than the shop owner.
Agreed. Yeah. Maybe this isn't the right question, but I'm going to
Mhm.
toss it out there just because I'm curious from a publisher side of things. Like do you know anything about how they approach Free Comic Book Day? Because we've been talking about how a lot of these books are jumping on points, the start of new story arcs and things that are forthcoming. I guess that makes me think that they've got to consider that when they're thinking about editorials, scheduling, and things like that. Do you have any insight into how, let's say, a Marvel, a Boom, or IDW goes about creating Free Comic Book Day? Like, do they get feedback from the committee? Do they get feedback from Diamond? Like, or is it strictly like up to them? Do they have full creative control about what books get made for Free Comic Book Day?
Yeah, they totally have full creative control. I don't know that I can shed too much light on this topic, but
That's fair.
they do have full creative control, and I do know that the committee will always provide feedback on their
Hmm.
selections, why they picked a certain book or why they did not pick a certain book. And the publishers rely on that feedback. They take it
Hmm.
very seriously, um, because it does say a lot about whether or not they're going to get picked. So they want
Hmm.
to give that the weight it deserves. But in terms of like the content, what stories they want to tell, I don't know that I can speak to that too much other
Okay.
than they do try to lob it up to get it into as many hands as possible. I know that's always the goal with these free comic book day books, is what story can I tell that will maximize the number of hands that pick it up.
You know what, aside from all the great things we've already discussed and listed about Free Comic Book Day, hearing this and about like this committee, like, you know, the back and forth, it is inspiring to hear, because I guess I could point to 100 other examples where, you know, it's a retailer, like, you know, getting online, or, you know, airing out their grievances with publishers and things like that. It sounds like Free Comic Book Day is the one, you know, kind of opportunity for publishers to like get that feedback directly from these shop owners, and like you know what I'm saying? It's like that's not the normal. But, you know, the exception is made for Free Comic Book Day, where, you know, the retailers have a little more say and leeway, and they actually can share their input and be heard. I think that's a really cool thing to know about.
Definitely. It makes the event very much a thing that is like by comic book readers for comic book readers.
Well said. Yeah. You know what? That should be the, is that the slogan? Is that the 2025 slogan? For comic book readers, by comic readers?
It could be. Maybe we're onto something.
There we go. You know what, Ashton, what I like to do with guest interviews, where I can, I can't always do it, but where I can, I try to think about who can I reach out to submit something, a question for the interviewee, the guest of honor, that'll really make it a fun interview. And I had two people come to mind for this particular interview. Now, I'm going to play you a voicemail from this first person. I don't know if it's someone that you know, but, you know, we're on the topic of comic shop retailers, an event for comic fans by comic readers. And this first voicemail comes from my local comic shop owner, Ben Kingsbury. I told him that, you know, I was having the official Duchess of Free Comic Book Day, the official spokesperson on the show, and I asked him to submit something from a retailer perspective. And I'm going to toss it up to him, all right? Here's what I got for you.
Hey, Ashton. Ben K from Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville, Florida here. I think I can speak for all comic shop owners when I say we couldn't keep this amazing community going without the generosity of people just like you, who embrace their job and bring their passion to this amazing hobby and lifestyle. So thanks so much for being here. I've got two super important questions for you. First, you've mentioned your love of Star Wars in the past. So if you could only watch one Star Wars movie from the original trilogy for the rest of your life, which one would you choose? New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi? And for my second question, you've also said Walking Dead, the TV show, opened the comic world to you a little bit. Now that Robert Kirkman is re-releasing The Walking Dead Deluxe, The Walking Dead comic in full color, are you reading in or collecting the series? I'll leave you to answer. Thanks again, and may the 4th be with you. Oh, and remember, Short Box Nation, always take it to the limit.
Yeah, I love Ben, man. Ben is someone that really gets into, putting time and thought into his questions and voicemail, and I love that he did his homework about you, that he knows that, you know, you are a fan of Walking Dead. That's how you got into the books, and your love of Star Wars. What do you got to say to his questions?
First of all, great questions. Like, I was smiling the entire time. Like, I love the energy.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I would have to say, man, that Star Wars question's a good one. I feel like probably Empire Strikes Back. And it's a very reluctant answer. It's so hard to pick from them, but I've always felt like the value for me in Empire Strikes Back is that the heroes are kind of down and out.
Yeah.
It's not like they're always winning, always on top of it. Like, they're going to get Darth Vader. Like, they always have a plan. They don't. They're just I think Empire really shows that it literally is just a group of like ragtag people that want a better galaxy. And that doesn't always land the way they want, but it doesn't deter them. So I think probably that one. I think it's got the best message for me.
Yeah, it was. It was Avengers: Infinity War before Avengers: Infinity War by years, where the hero, it ends on such a low note where the heroes, have lost. That is not a bad choice at all. And then in terms of Walking Dead and the new deluxe editions coming out, being in full color. Are you collecting those? Are you reading those?
I haven't been, but I totally should, if for no other reason than like the gore. I think,
What other reason could you have but the gore to see it in beautiful, pristine
I
HD
mean,
color? Let's do
I
it.
don't know, to see Rick's great hair. I don't know. Um,
That's a great answer.
it's so, even just in black and white, like the gore is so loud and in your face that to see it in color, I think is the only reason that I would need to go purchase them. So maybe I was on a self-imposed comic book buying ban because
Hmm.
my reading list had gotten so big that I was like, I need to work through some of these before I buy more. However, I might have just been talked into buying the deluxe version this weekend.
There we go. Look, Ben is, in my opinion, maybe the best comic salesman. There is not a book that he can't sell you. So Ben, you got a winner. All right, Ashton, I've got one more voicemail to play, and I'm gonna leave this one as a surprise. I'm not gonna mention who it is, but
Okay.
it is. He was the first name that came to mind when I was like, oh, I might have an Ashton on the show. I'm gonna reach out to XYZ. So here is your second voicemail. Here we go.
Hey, Ashton. This is your co-host, Troy Jeffrey Allen. The good folks at Shortbox actually wanted me to ask you a question, and I think it's a question that a lot of us need to know, and I feel like you're the right source to set the record straight. Is it Timothy Chalamet or Timothée Chalamet? Please, we need to know.
I'm cracking up at this.
Can I say, I think Troy, the first text I seen this morning was from Troy. And he was like, hey, I sent it to you. I also emailed it to you. Thanks again. And I was thinking, I don't know what, I guess I don't know what I was expecting from Troy. I thought maybe it'd be a question about, hey, what's your favorite interview that we've done together on previews, or, what books are you reading? But that question far exceeded anything I could have thought of. That is such a better question. So I guess I got to know, do you guys have an inside joke about pronouncing Timothy's, damn it, now I'm blubbing it up. You guys have an inside joke about his name?
Um, it's not about his name specifically. I'm a huge Dune fan. I read
Oh,
the
nice.
book a few years back and was incredibly excited for the movie. And I had let slip to Troy that I think Timothy Chalamet is a cutie. So now I'm cursed to be ridiculed about that forever.
That is hilarious. Can I also say that Troy's got maybe one of the nicest voices in the comic book industry.
Yeah.
Hearing it on the, because I just played it from my phone, but hearing it on headphones, he's got a lot of bass. He's like a smooth jazz or quiet storm radio host.
I
That
was
was
thinking that too. He's got a radio voice.
Yeah, he does. On the topic of Dean, I'll say that I am currently reading I'm reading the book for the first time after watching Dune 2 in theaters and just loving like this new series of movies. I decided to read the first book, and I'm like 150 pages in, and I love it. I am
Yeah.
like enthralled by it. I was told, I guess I had seen online, just kind of, you just reading stuff online, that it's a difficult book to get into. Herbert's writing is kind of dry, no pun intended, the whole Dune Sand thing. But, it's not the easiest thing to get into. And I'm having quite the opposite experience. From like the off the rip, I've been enjoying it. And tell me if this sounds weird, but it kind of reads like a comic book. I think the inner monologue aspect of it is really cool, and the fact that I've got visual references based on the movie, like it just makes reading it a lot I don't know, just way more easier for me.
I totally agree. And I think the world building is so thorough and so visual in the way that he explains it
Yeah.
that you do get the sense that you feel like you're looking at this place where
Yeah.
everything's happening. It definitely
Yeah.
is a similar experience.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna harp once again on like the inner monologue part is an interesting aspect to it, because it's done it's like italicized, so you kind of can tell that this is a thought that they're having about the person. And sometimes these characters are just so petty. They're like, man, I hate this dude, man. This dude don't know what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? And I think just
Yeah.
having like that insight into their inner workings and their inner feelings kind of, I mean, obviously puts you into their mind, but it adds a different aspect that I don't think would have worked in the movies. Like they can't just have 2 hours of inner monologue and inner shit talking.
Although I would have.
Oh yeah,
Gosh.
100%. No, yeah, for sure. Sign me up because some of the stuff they say in the book is hilarious. Now, when Troy sent in this voicemail, I
Mhm.
won't lie to you. I went down a rabbit hole of like, have I been saying his name wrong this whole time? So
Probably
I'm like,
have.
I'm watching like,
Timothée.
yeah, Timothée Chalamet, because
Mhm.
I found some video where he's explaining like he
Mhm.
doesn't get butthurt about people pronouncing it wrong, but he's like, yeah, everyone pronounces it wrong. It's Timothée Chalamet,
Mhm.
and I probably said it wrong there too. But there was an interview with Florence Pugh where she's on the red carpet talking about Dune 2, and they actually I think bring up his how his name is spelled, and she admits she's like, oh, I've been saying it wrong this whole time, but also when I have to say his last name, I immediately think of Shalamala Bing Bong. And
Oh no,
I
I'm
think
I'm
she
gonna think about that forever
yeah,
now.
I know. It's one of those like earworms. No pun intended there too. But and I think she admitted to saying like, it was an inside joke that
Mm.
but she got caught. Like I think she was like doing some press run. She was like, "Oh, I love Timothée Chalamet Bing Bong." Like she found herself saying it and having to correct herself. So, funny stuff. Actually, it's on the topic of Troy, and we don't have to get too much into it, but you are a co-host on the Previews YouTube channel. You also are a
Mhm.
regular contributor to the Previews magazine that comes out every month. And I was curious how much goes into, I guess, like, I guess how much time does that take up from your daily work? Because you wear a lot of hats. Like, what do you like doing the most? Do you like doing the free comic book stuff stay the most? Do you like being on camera for the YouTube channels, or do you like writing editorials and content for the Previews magazine?
Man, that's a really good question. Um, I think the first thing I want to say is I thoroughly enjoy my job. Like I consider myself
You
very
got a pretty
lucky.
badass job. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you do.
I consider myself very lucky to work in this industry and to work for something that I enjoy as like a hobby. So
Hmm.
I'm very lucky that way. There's no part of my job that I dislike, but I really, really like working on Free Comic Book Day. And I've been doing it for a little over 6 years now, and it very much feels like my baby at this point in time.
Oh.
Very protective of it. I want it to go well. I want it to have good books. I want everyone to have a great time. Like, so that's probably the main thing that I would say I'm like, this is like my baby. I do enjoy the social media stuff. We get a lot of free reign to just like try things out, throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. Troy and I meet every week on Mondays to talk about like what do we want to try? Like what are our new ideas? What content do
Hmm.
we think is fun? So I think that's a good time as well. And Troy's a great collaborator. I really enjoy working with him.
Oh, Troy is the best. He's got a smooth, awesome voice.
Hmm.
He's super knowledgeable. He's a comic creator himself.
Hmm.
I mean, you got a solid team overall. Like, I will say that is one thing about the Previews crew, is that you guys have got some fantastic co-hosts. You guys have very thoughtful segments. Like your YouTube channel's got interviews. It's got unboxing. It's got previews and all of that stuff. Do you have a particular favorite segment or aspect of like the Previews world video content?
Man, this might not be the answer you wanted to hear, but there's an episode of Previews World Weekly, and I wish I knew which one it was, where I forced Troy to listen to me explain to him about fan fiction, and more specifically, like the fan fiction that exists in the Mandalorian universe
Hmm.
between Din Djarin and Bo-Katan. And he hated it. He hated all of it. He couldn't wait for that conversation to be over.
Damn, man, you've got some cool ass code. I mean, I imagine at this point, like you've probably been working with like Troy for so many years, Cannondale X for so many years. Like they probably, I mean, do they feel like family to you?
Oh my God, yes.
Hmm.
There was a Baltimore Comic Con, I think it was 2 years ago, where me, Troy, and Cannon were all working the booth at the same time, and it
Hmm.
was so much fun.
Oh
Uh,
man.
just to like geek out, like talk to people that also loved the same stuff. We were like filming TikToks on the show floor. Like, yeah, totally just like so much fun to work with. They're the best.
You guys have like on-screen chemistry, like really good energy. Like like to I guess repurpose our new Free Comic Book Day phrase. All the Previews World content definitely feels like for comic fans by comic fans. Underline that part.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, how many interviews do you think you've conducted during your time with Diamond and doing all the preview stuff? Like, if you had to give like a ballpark number, how many
Oh,
interviews?
I'm panicking. Um, oh,
Because you've been working, you got a job at Diamond, I believe, fresh out of college, University of
yeah.
Maryland, 2018. So you've been there for what is this? Going on 6 years now. Like, I
Hmm.
imagine you probably racked up a lot of interviews in your time.
Yeah, I'm thinking like because I do like creator interviews, like written interviews every year for Free
Hmm.
Comic Book Day. So that's like easily like 20 interviews a year
Wow.
times six plus any like video interviews that I've done. So probably approaching 100. I wouldn't say I'm there yet, but
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah, we
that's a considerable amount of time interviewing and being on camera and the amount of prep. Yeah, that is a lot of time. Do you have any that in particular that maybe stand out to you as a a favorite for whatever personal reason, like any that of those 100 that you're like extremely proud of,
Mhm.
or you look back maybe a little more fondly than the rest?
Honestly, yeah. When I interviewed Alice Oseman for her Heartstopper book,
Hmm.
that's probably one of the few interviews I've done where I kind of felt like starstruck
Hmm.
almost just because I love those books. I love her work. I started reading them during lockdown in 2020, so it was very much a thing that I like completely was immersed in. Um, and it was like also right before Heartstopper got adapted into a Netflix show. So I kind of felt like I was like an early adapter almost with being a fan of hers. And she was so sweet,
Hmm.
so excited to talk about her work. She was really, really wonderful. And I thoroughly enjoyed talking to her because I was in full fangirl mode. And like it did not phase her. She just like was
Oh.
thrilled to talk about it. Wasn't like, this girl's a weirdo.
Damn, that's awesome. That is so awesome to hear. I've got a few of those stories too, where I'm like, Potter, chill, chill, chill. You are
Yeah.
coming up too much, coming up too strong. But the interview turned out great, and that is one thing about being in this space and having the opportunity to interview creatives and writers and
Hmm.
artists is that for the most part they're happy that like you're putting a spotlight on their book, and I always
Hmm.
find that they're really core. I mean, there's maybe one or two exclusions to that, but for the most part, like people in comics are just really friendly. They're really friendly, really
Yeah.
attentive, and I think because there's like a personal connection that a lot of
Hmm.
us fans have with like these bodies of work. I think in my experience, like creators really appreciate that, and I don't know too many of them that take it for granted. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think I've ever interviewed someone who was anything less than thrilled to have the
Mm.
opportunity to talk about their work.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Ashton, I've got another question for you before we start wrapping up here. But
Mhm.
Ashton, considering that you work, that you've been working
Mhm.
at Diamond for since 2018, that you're involved in it's forward facing video content, and as well as the magazine that comes out, and maybe someone that's not too familiar, like, Diamond is one of the largest suppliers of comics and other comic book paraphernalia and merch and toys and etc. for a lot of shops across the world. I imagine that you've gotten to you're privy to things about the comic book industry from like the logistics side, how things are run, and the reality
Mhm.
of the business side. Like, I guess, can you share anything that you wish more people knew about the comic book industry in that pocket that you don't think many know about that might change the perception or make them appreciate it a little more?
Ooh, another great question. Um, Man, I think probably like from a boots on the ground perspective, the
Hmm.
things I've learned about comic book retailers, like shop owners, and all of the logistics that go into them being able to get you the books you want. Like, Preview's catalog is 500 pages. And
Oh yeah.
so, they have this task of going through it and figuring out like what do people on my pull list want? Like what's going to be popular, trying to have a pulse on those things. And then just like the ordering process is enormous and there's so many moving parts there to keep track of. There's price changes and returnability changes
Hmm.
and things that impact retailer orders so frequently that they have to be so on top of it to make sure they have everything that their customers want and that when they walk into the shop they have a great experience. Like the moving parts there that keep these
Hmm.
shops going is insane.
Now, to add to that, if you had let's say you had the Infinity Stones, you had the Infinity
Hmm.
Gauntlet, and you could only use it to change something in the comic book industry for the better, what would you change for the better that would benefit,
Mm.
all parties involved when you think about the industry?
Wow, you're coming out with the heavy hitter questions.
Look,
Okay.
I had to come correct. I'm like, I got Ashton Greenwood on the pod. Come on, I had to do my homework.
Wow, this is another great question. Um, I think my answer is for there just to be a little more visibility and awareness
Hmm.
surrounding smaller creators and smaller indie publishers because they're doing such good work and they're telling really, really great, really impressive stories that I think sometimes their size keeps them from being able to just get as much marketing done. But that doesn't make those stories any less great. So if I
Agreed.
could make it so that their awareness was much bigger, far and away bigger, that would definitely be the change I would make.
That is such a good answer. Fantastic answer right there. I knew you'd nailed that one. And I
Thanks.
got one more question that's asking for your advice here, and
Hmm.
that's I guess I'm looking for advice for anyone that's in a similar position like you, where they're
Hmm.
juggling a lot of different hats and the different projects at the same time. Like, what can they do to be more successful? What
Hmm.
have you found that works for you to juggle all these things
Hmm.
and at the same time, like, execute at a high level?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think reprioritizing is really important. Every morning when I start my workday, I make a list of
Mm-hmm.
everything that I would like to get done that day. And then I pick the four things that have to get done that day. That way you're not like, oh, I'm overwhelmed by having 15 tasks. It's like these are the things that are like mission critical. And then if you have extra time, you can start chipping away at those other things. So I think reprioritizing is really important. And I also think I'm very fortunate to have a really open conversation with my boss regularly. Her and I talk almost every day, and I think there's a lot of value in being able to go to your boss and say, I feel like my plate is overflowing right now. I want to manage expectations. Can you let me know what things you think are important? And then from there, you can kind of go back to your reprioritizing. I know not everyone's in a position to have that great relationship with their boss, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think it is very helpful.
Yeah, and I'll echo what you said about having like a list. That's something that I incorporate
Hmm.
myself. That helps me keep like just kind of keeps me sane. Is
Yeah.
I guess I'll shout out the app that I use, but I use a basic ass app called Microsoft To Do. It's just like a list app
Hmm.
that you can make multiple lists and folders of these lists and things like that. And sometimes actually I'll just grab a sticky note and I'll do the same thing where
Hmm.
it's like, what can I get done today? When what absolute, like I need to get this episode out this week. And if I can cut a clip today, that'd be great. But yeah, organization and prioritization, I think goes a long way. Um,
Agreed.
Actually, and one more question on the topic of previews and specifically the magazine. Like, I know that you contribute to the magazine. I know Troy contributes, as well as obviously the editor in chief of the magazine too. But one thing I noticed is that there isn't like you aren't specifically credited. Like, it's not write up in the whether it be a write up or an interview in the Previews magazine, which makes the magazine really cool. I always grab one every month because not only am I seeing like what's coming out, but then you guys are also doing like creator spotlights and fun things like that. Can you just fill me in on like what you contribute to the Previews magazine, or what you like to contribute?
Yeah, totally. So I think my main function with the previews catalog is wrangling any ads that are in the catalog
Hmm.
and working with the vendors who design their own pages. So if you look at like the Dynamite section or the
Hmm.
Boom section, the Premier publishers, our deluxe publishers, and then in the rest of the catalog, folks like Clover Press and Humanoids, and it's Vault is another one. There are pages that you'll notice are not quite the same as the rest of the book. They're clearly more designed, more laid out. Those publishers design their own pages to make them look swanky and all of that good stuff.
Hmm.
So my job is basically to just make sure we have all the pages we need to put into this catalog. So it's just a massive list of here's the ads that are booked, and here are all the pages other publishers have designed. And it is my job to just go down that list and email them, hey, where are your pages? And then check them off the list once they arrive.
So if I'm to rephrase that for anyone, maybe didn't catch that,
Mhm.
Ashton is mission critical when it comes to the Previews magazine. Is what I got out of that. Hell yeah.
It's a team effort, but yeah, I mean, I think having pages is fairly important. There's a lot of people involved in getting that catalog out the door though.
Oh
It is a
yeah.
massive team effort.
I'm always impressed. I mean, I've been as long as I've been collecting comic books, I've probably just as long been picking up a Previews magazine, and it never ceases to amaze me how much content are in
Mhm.
those magazines. I think I've joked before, like on some of my more broker financially challenging months or years. I would just pick up like a Previews magazine to kind of like suffice, right? Like I couldn't afford to grab my entire pull
Mhm.
list this week, but the previews came out and that'll suffice. Because like I said, you're getting previews, you're getting interviews, you're getting. Sometimes you guys will do fun segments where it's like, hey, do you know about Marie Severin? Here's a whole page
Mhm.
dedicated to her legacy and things. So, look, I appreciate what you do for previews, and I appreciate what you guys do at Diamond for the comic book world, and especially for throwing free comic book day,
Mhm.
which 3 days away from the time of this recording, if you're listening. Ashton, do you have anything to say in closing
Mhm.
about this year's Free Comic Book Day? I'm gonna have links, like I said, to the Free Comic Book Day website in case people want to check out the comics and get prepared that way. I'll include links to the Free Comic Book Day accounts on Twitter, X, and social media in the show notes. But do you have anything left to say? Any parting words, upcoming projects, or shameless plugs that you want to share?
Uh, sure. I think the main thing I want to say is if you are able to spend money, if you have some spending cash on Free Comic Book Day, I encourage you to pick something up at your comic shop for a number of reasons, just to support them. They're an important part of the community. And also because there's something in comic shops for everybody, and there's so much fun to be had. So if you have some spending cash, I encourage you to try and find something fun at your comic book shop, which leads me to my plug, and that is if you find something fun at your comic book shop or you take a picture of your Free Comic Book Day haul video, tag me at Free Comic Book Day. I want to see everybody's hauls, all the goodies you got.
Hmm.
I'll try to reshare and retweet as much things as I can. Yeah, and you can hang out and follow me there. It's all year round. During like the Free Comic Book Day off season in the fall, we try to do like polls and brackets and stuff like that to keep it fun and lively.
I like it. All right, Shortbox Nation, you've got you got your homework, right? Go enjoy Free Comic Book Day this Saturday, May 4th. Pick up some free comics, support your local comic shop, buy something, and most importantly, share your haul. All right, share what you picked up,
Mhm.
share your Free Comic Book Day festivities, and make sure to tag at Free Comic Book Day. Ashton, this has been fantastic. I'm so glad we got to make this happen. You are just as energetic, just as kind as I've seen in the videos and as everyone has told me. So thanks for sharing your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've had so much fun.
Hell yeah, you are more than welcome back. And you know what? Maybe we'll make a Snot Girl reading club episode happen.
Oh, I would be there. If you do that, invite me.
I love it. Hell yeah.